I'm just watching Joe's reaction there. Do you like it, Joe? It's all right, isn't it?
Fancy.
It's looking all right. Yes, it is, Anto. It is live. I know you've been getting your head in a tailspin because sometimes it's been live and I've not been actually live. But chill, relax. This is live, right?
Tricks.
Yeah, tricks of the trade and all that. Hello to everyone in the chat. Please do smash a like. I don't know if Soccer Aid's still going, but I've pulled you from that. I don't watch it. I mean, call me. I don't know. I seen on Twitter a guy in a jetpack putting the ball to the centre circle, and that was enough for me. Evie says gone all corporate with that intro. I mean, listen, it's
sold out. It's gone mainstream.
Yeah, I've gone mainstream. It's cost me a pretty penny as well, if I do say so myself, Evie. So you know what I mean. There you go. I mean, I don't have the skills to be able to do that, unfortunately. But yeah, Joe, I've been on holiday. Yeah. We spoke briefly on text, I think, on Friday when we seen all the. I seen you putting out fires basically on Twitter. Like
I started deleting stuff. Then after that, I really got bored of the reaction, so I just went. I'm just going to remove their messages completely.
Yeah. I just mute them in that case. But I seen that and I thought, oh, I'll just drop him a quick message because I was like, it's getting a little bit too much in it. So. What I wanted to do is just have a chat, and I want you folks to get involved in the comments as well, and we'll flash them up and just debate it, really, because is it right or wrong? Listen, the titles is Farke and Leeds season prep a disaster? ? Fans debate. Well, we know it's not a disaster, okay? But there is a conversation to be had, because prior to this retain list coming out, I was seeing people saying, we will know if this club is serious by this retained list. And obviously then we see the reaction to some of the players that have been retained, and it's like, we're not serious anymore. They're taking up places, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then obviously today, there's been links to Charlie Creswell as well. And you could argue, a lot of fans might think, well, I'd rather keep Creswell and just bin off Shackleton and Cooper. And I can sort of understand that argument as well. Small fee apparently being bandied about for Creswell in the regions of about 3 million going abroad. We spoke about it earlier on. We don't need to go into that. We'll get Joe's thoughts on it, though. So what I wanted to know, is the season prep up to this point, like, right or wrong, right? And we will put a poll. I will put a poll in the chat, War Piglet, don't worry. But, Joe, first and foremost, how are you? And then what are your initial reactions to everything I just said there?
Yeah, I'm good. Same as you. I at this stage, it's almost becoming a Twitter trope at this stage where Leeds will announce something and there'll be an absolute meltdown online, even when it's not that big a deal. And these really aren't that big a deal. I mean, the sums of money being talked about the players. And it should be said, these players have been offered contracts. They have yet to accept those contracts. It is not a done deal yet. So the terms that are being offered might not be acceptable to these players as well. That should also be said. We also need to have a squad. A squad isn't 18 players. It's 22, 30. It's a bigger squad. You will need certain types of people around there at certain times to do a job for you. These players also need to have a squad to play against in training to get prepped for matches. So you need more than the 11 or the 18. You need a big squad. Leeds squad last year probably wasn't big enough. It probably wasn't, didn't have the depth in certain areas. And I think a couple of these just safeguard Leeds against going in short-handed, or at least if we have to wait till the end of the window in August to get a certain player, we've got some cover in certain positions and we've not left ourselves too short. I saw Andrea do a piece around this as well where he said, Arlockie, you can't just let 15 players go. The players do have to come back to a preseason, and it's likely you won't have all your players in by the start of the new season. It'd be nice to have that, but it's unlikely that you'll get that. So I think there's they've been sensible. I do question the offers. I do question them, and I question them from the players' side as much as I question them from Leeds side. And then the Cresy one, I still scratch my head around Charlie Creswell because he's so young. He's got a long contract. He's miles away from his peak. What's the rush to sell? If clubs want them, get a loan fee, send them out for a little bit. But I know there is this 30th of June PSR deadline coming up, whether Leeds will need to shift somebody before that. They haven't been named as a club that have to, but they might want to get somebody off their books before that to make it a bit easier in the next cycle. But yeah, some of it's a storm in a teacup, but then most of last week was a storm in a teacup in different areas. So it's but I guess it's not that big a deal. The Crazy one is the one that I'm scratching my head on.
Yeah. I think this is a good point. This is Twitter in a nutshell. If the board crapped out a gold bar, someone would complain it wasn't shiny enough, too soon to judge. Yeah, far too soon to judge for sure. But of course, in the content creation world, you do, and even on Twitter, I guess it's almost similar. You have accounts creating tweets for purposes of content. Really, it's just
Football Insider.
Yeah, well, yeah. Even just normal accounts though will like create a tweet with the proviso of it banging and it getting likes and it getting retweets and that. We all do it, right? Like when I was in Spain and I seen Jesse Marsh get battered, I thought I'm going to say Jesse Marsh ball is back, but in French. That took me a couple of minutes to go on and say, how do I say this in French? Right, copy, paste. That'll do well, and it did do well. So we all do it, right? It is what it is. But yeah, let's talk about that retain. What was it? Jesse Ball, Retourier Bebe, or something like that.
I went for the Thierry Henry kind of.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. And then we had Weston McKennie yesterday, didn't we, saying, we're the favourites for the Copa America. And they got battered 5-1 by Colombia. So, we will be there. Yeah, we'll be there. It's going to be fun. So, going back to that retain list, and then we'll talk about Charlie earlier on. The Cody Drama one initially sent surprise. Then we find out he's been offered that, so Leeds get compensation. Clever. Yeah, it's very clever. Yeah, they'd be daft not to do that if we're being honest, because
if it's a case that he's going to say no to it anyway, you win.
Yeah, exactly. It's free money. It's free money in a sense, isn't it? Really. But the Shackleton one, let's talk about that first, because I want to get your opinion. Because I said the other day when I came back and spoke about it just yesterday, it's a hard one because Jamie Shack clearly loves Leeds United fan, like Archie, like Calvin before him, but not quite at the level. He didn't play last year, and I would argue the squad, maybe not individuals, but the squad overall will be better in terms of depth and what's needed for the Championship, in my opinion, that is, this time around. So he struggled even more so for minutes. So if I'm advising Shack, I'm saying, look, Jamie, you've been offered a deal. You can accept that, or do you drop down a division, maybe even 2, and play? Do you drop to League 2 like Robbie Gotts did? Do you drop to League 1 like Lewis Bate did and go and play football? Because he's at an age now where he needs to play. And if we're being honest, unless Farke's got this grand plan, I don't expect Jamie to play this season. So it's a difficult one, isn't it?
He gives you cover in lots of positions, but. And again, it's the statement of the summer. Like the word effective was the word of last season. The word so far of this summer comes down to availability. And that's the best ability is availability. Has he been available? Jamie Shackleton wasn't available last year. He played 11 matches in total for Leeds last season. Or 11, championship games last season, which is nowhere near enough. What I'd say about this is, and I'll be very careful with this, I have a lot of respect for Jamie Shackleton. He's never put a foot out of place at Leeds. He's never caused any trouble at Leeds. He's never gone after money. He's never demanded anything for whatever reasons. He's always just come in, done his job, been a pro, and he should be respected for that. So I don't want to talk down Jamie. I don't even want to talk about levels with him. I think he didn't get a really good crack at the start of last season. He had injuries straight out of the bat. His season never got going. Then every time he had an opportunity to get into the team, he was either ill or injured. And that became a problem. Joe Gelhardt was a bit the same last year as well. So they never really got going. But Shack's on paper is a good hand. He can do a job at right back pretty tidily. He can do a job in the centre of the park pretty tidily. And we said this at the start of last year. He's not a 7 out of 10. He's a 6.5, but consistent. Like you'll never ever point the finger at Jamie Shackleton going, that's his fault, because he just doesn't do that. He's a safe player. He's a good workhorse. He gives everything when he plays. I can understand most managers wanting Jamie Shackleton at the club. He's probably the kind of player you want, because even in training, he'll give you 100%, which means the rest of the players have to step up because the lads that are in the team don't want him getting ahead of them. So they step up their game. So he's a good player to have around the place, but is it good for him? And I don't think being the utility man and not the Stuart Dallas version where you play every single week, but in a different position. Jamie's very much on we'll stick you on the bench because if that happens and we've made other changes, we can bring you in and you can do a job. So for me, Shax has two options here, but they both involve backing himself. He either backs himself to get into the team this year at Leeds, which would break, I suppose, what the history has been with Leeds over the last couple of years and Millwall. Or he, to your point, and I think I wouldn't go as far as League 1, 2. I think there's teams in the middle, lower end of the championship would take Shaq's. I mean, you remember when he was at Millwall, they liked him. But Gary Rowett talked very positively about him as well. And they were competing for the playoffs at that stage. So it was the upper end of the championship he was still competing. And maybe it's the middle he needs to get into to play consistently for. And it could be the same as Junior Firpo. Shaq could get an entire season playing right back or centre made under his belt and could be cracking at it. He could have a really good season. I prefer him as a right back than I do to midfield. I think he's very steady at right back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Bielsa obviously first played in there.
Sorry, that's a great point. I don't see the downside to keeping Shaq because it won't be a lot of money. It'll be less than he's on now. And it'll be a reduced workload. Like, he'll only be playing when they need him to play. So, from Leeds' perspective, so what?
Yeah. I said exactly the same point. Like, that people that were losing their heads over it, Joe, I was like, why? What? Yeah. Why? Jamie Shackleton isn't going to stunt the growth of any player coming through. I think, to be fair to Evie, she said she don't want Shaq getting in the way of Charlie Crew. He wouldn't, right? He's not. So for me, he's not going to stunt the growth of anyone coming through. He's going to not be costing the club a lot of money. He's clearly not going to moan and bitch on the training pitch or cause issues. I remember a press conference, obviously I do them, and I remember when Farke said, "We will look after Jamie." That was one line that he said in one press conference. I can't remember the context, can't remember why, but I just remember him saying it. So it's almost,
but then he got injured for months again.
Yeah.
And you're like...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I just think, like you say, like, if we look at Byron, for example, and everyone's on board with the Byron one, and people say, oh, he's like Farke's son, I can imagine Jamie's got that kind of vibe about him as well, in terms of just doing what's expected. And like you say, I think a comment's been made there by John, like, a lot of people sometimes think it's FIFA that you can get rid of everyone, clear the decks, and then start again. You do need a bit of continuity. And as I agree with what's just been said, and you repeated it, in like, there is no downside. But also from Jamie's perspective, you've got to
That's where the downside is.
Yeah.
It's only on his side. It's only on his side.
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it? Like, if he stays, he's what? Third choice right back behind, could even be fourth if you throw Archie in there, because I'd like us to go get one, if I'm honest, Joe. So you're looking at, like,
I agree.
You're looking at a right back. Don't know what happens with Firpo, but let's say we have first choice right back, first choice left back. Byron then is back up to both, and then Shackleton's you back up to that. But also Shackleton can play in midfield or right wing, as we've seen.
But again, he's third or fourth choice there as well.
Yeah. So
does he ever really play?
Yeah, exactly. This is what I mean. So, yeah, he needs to go play, man. He just needs to go play. But you can sort of understand the club's perspective of offering him a deal.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there are players that I've coached that when I go to a different club, will pick up the phone and ring me, or I'll pick up the phone and ring them and see if they want to come play where I am, because they've either helped me when I've worked in that club, or they're good to help me get the message out quicker, and they're good, like, you know, sticking gel around the outside to kind of help bind your plan together. And there's players that I won't. And there's players that are really, really good that I've had at clubs that I go to another club and I wouldn't pick up the phone and call them or think about it. Or if they came in the door and asked to play for the club, I'd be like, I'd rather you didn't. You know, it's not always about the best player. From a manager's perspective, it's not always about putting the most skillful players, or the most skillful players in every single position in your squad, because that doesn't always mix, doesn't always gel well. You need workhorses in there as well. You need people that are not the most spectacular footballers, but will blend the whole thing together. I've played with some captains at teams that I've won stuff at in Dublin, where they were relatively limited midfielders, but they would pass the ball 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. But they break up everybody who went past them, and they lead the team, and they were talkers and organisers, and they were great. And as a manager on a training pitch, you can't have Willie Nonto, Georgie Rutter, Matthias Click. You can't have 20 of them, because you'll get nothing done. They'll just distract everybody. There'll be too much messing going on. You won't get any work done. You also can't have 22 Gaetano Berardis in your squad who are running around kicking everyone up in the air and trying to drag everyone to be brilliant. You can't do that. You've got to have a mix. And you've got to have guys in the middle who, during training specifically, get the work done and can help the rest of the players. Like when you say at the start, right, lads, get your laps in before we start training. Shax is the guy that goes to the front of the Cooper and starts running, and then the rest follow. He gets them going, gets them moving. So the standards there as well. Jamie's a good pro. He's a really, really good pro. Every manager at Leeds has liked him, has tried to fit him in. Gary Rowett said the same thing about him at Millwall. we always try and fit Jamie in somewhere because he's a good pro and he's good, doesn't let you down. But he's not the most spectacular footballer in the world. He doesn't score an awful lot of goals. He's not the most attacking player in the world. But he's a good option to have. But that's from a Leeds perspective. From a Jamie perspective, is do you want to keep being the third choice or do you want to go play football?
Yeah.
Do you want to make a name for yourself? So look at Alex Mowat. Alex Mowat could have floated around the Leeds. He would have played under plenty of managers. I think Bielsa would have loved him. Or you can go and make your name at West Brom or somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he dropped down to Barnsley, didn't he? First at
Yeah.
League One, and then made his way back up, and like you say, he was in the playoff semi-finals. So you can do it. So yeah, Shackleton. I don't know. Here's the burning question: do you think he accepts the new deal?
If you find it hard to find another club after 11 games last year, he might be.
Yeah, I think
that's a safety net. Then
it all depends on who his agent reaches out to, who offer, because his agent will be fine. Look, Jamie, let me see if I can get you a deal, right? You know, Millwall want you back, or so and so. Like Gary Rowett, who I think he finished the season at Birmingham, maybe. They've just gone down. Gary Rowett, I don't think he's their manager now, but, you know, there may be clubs, though, look, he's available, do you want him? And if he gets an offer, then maybe he takes that, mate, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Cooper, next one, still not signed. Find it interesting that it's still not signed, because you'd have maybe assumed he'd have jumped at the chance, but listen, he's just signed, well, he's just been called up 26-man squad for the Euros for Scotland. He's going to the Euros, could have a good Euros. I don't think he starts, but you never know, there might be an injury and maybe he gets in. Obviously, they play Germany on Friday, tough group for Scotland, but if he gets some games, there could be clubs knocking on the door. I know it's easy to make the link, but you look at someone like Middlesbrough, work great at the back. Other clubs in the Championship. So I put this dilemma out the other day, and I'll ask you the same. Like, if you're Cooper, do you stay for your 10 years? Or do you... Because, he gets his 10th year, he gets his testimonial. Yeah, exactly. I'm here. Could all probably still be club captain and lift the, Championship trophy at the end of the season. What a way to go out, yada, yada, yada. Or do you go and play and try secure a 3-year deal somewhere else? Because ultimately, he's coming to the end. This could be his last contract year. So what does he do?
Again, from a Leeds perspective, I'd say it's reduced terms. I think the big thing with Shaqs and Cooper, the fact that they've been offered these deals. Joel Robles and Adam Forshaw were offered to come back for pre-season at the end. And they didn't say it was a new contract, but they were offered the chance to come back for pre-season. And both of them thought about it for months and then decided not to take the club up on it and went elsewhere. So it's very possible Shaqs and Cooper could both think about this for a couple of weeks and wait till the Euros are over and then go, actually, you know what, I've got a better offer. So they could have time on this. I think Cooper's important behind the scenes. I don't think he plays an awful lot. I think Leeds will still need to buy more centre-backs to cover him. I wouldn't like to see Liam as a starting option for Leeds if we're going to be trying to win the league next year. But I do think he could still do a job in the Championship, and I think there's plenty of clubs around Yorkshire bite your hand off for him as well. Yeah. And I'm sure he'd have offers in Saudi as well, being a defender, Yeah. But I think Liam Cooper doesn't owe Leeds anything at this point. He's done everything for Leeds. I think even if he packs it up at this stage, he's technically in his 10th year, but not season. Give him his testimonial. Let him have his testimonial, It did feel like people were saying goodbye to him at Ellen Road, though, after the Norwich game.
It did with his family and that, didn't it?
So I feel like that was the perfect full stop, and next chapter. I think maybe if he sticks around for another year, it might not. I mean, if we don't go up next year and he's still in the squad and he's played a couple of games, he could be a lightning rod as well. Again, from a Leeds perspective, I think it's a win-win. Yeah. But I think from his perspective, it is his last contract. Go play some football or go take the big money somewhere because you've deserved it.
Lodi, thank you for the comment, but I don't understand. Can I genuinely give you a little bit, or ask for a little bit of clarity as to why you don't like him being at the club? Like, what is it? Like, this is my point, and this is why I wanted to have this chat with Joe, because it's like, it angers people. It seems to anger and annoy people that Shaq's been offered a new deal, or that Cooper's been offered a new deal, and it's just to find out why. Why don't you like that? Testimonial, it's not 1975. The reason why you don't know what testimonials are anymore, mate, is because no one stays at clubs 10 years anymore.
No one's there long enough, yeah.
If they did, they would get them, and Cooper will get one. It's not about it being 1975. This is why it should be celebrated, that someone will stay at a club.
It's supposed to be a huge achievement of your career. Like, it's 100%. Not just, I mean, in the olden days, it was to buy you a pub. So you had an income after you retired. Now it's a nice way to say goodbye to a player and let them go out. Because no one wants to, after 10 years, imagine your last game being a goodbye and a match that you lost. Not that we lost, but in general, you know, it was a crappy way to go out. Like, and that's how your time at the club was remembered, or a sit-down interview. It'd be nice to have an actual game where it's not all about the result, and you can have some of the ex-pros come back, make a day out of it, say goodbye to a couple of people, you know?
Yeah. Clem says, I love Cooper and Joe and Shacks, but I think it's good for both sides. Well, the club have offered him a deal. Like, why do you... Let's flip that, Joe, and ask that question. Like, he's saying it's good for both sides, but the club have offered him a deal. So why have they? Why have they?
I think people want to move on from the relegation, but they also forget that Cooper was part of the squad that got us up. So was Shacks, you know, but they want to move on from that period, and that Cooper and Shacks are like the last two of the Bielsa squad and what lingered into the Marsh squad. And if you move them on, then that's all gone. You're starting with a clean slate. They're not going to play a lot of games. They're not going to be on. I mean, the dream for me is that Leeds buy 4 players that are 4 starting players, that pushes 4 players from the starting 11 onto the bench, and then the bench is stronger. And that the likes of Shacks and Cooper are then in the match day squad, but not, in the squad coming to the game or in training, but not in the 18 that are picked. Yeah. You know, but they're still part, and then they can step in every now and then and cover when you need a body to cover. So you're not bringing a 16-year-old up from the under 20s or something. You know, it's having that extra depth around the squad. But they're not going to. I mean, they're not going to be the reason we go up or don't go up.
No,
the two
exactly.
of them, you know.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned there, and this is where it becomes an issue in a sense, in that, like, you know, many games last season we had 2 keepers on the bench. Other, you know, the playoff finals seen 0 midfielders on the bench. You know, this all has to be taken into consideration, why you can't just bomb out a load of players, because you would then ultimately need to replace them. Like David says here, taking up a playing position. Well, they're not.
They're not. I mean, again, to the point where this is not 1975. This is not 1975. You've not got a squad of 16 players, and you know one of these is getting in the way of maybe an underage player getting his chance in the first team squad. They're not being picked because they've been there for 8, 9, 10 years. They're being picked because they're good enough or not. Yeah. Liam Cooper didn't start games last season because Leeds had better options in that position. Same will happen next season. They're not blocking anybody coming through. Liam Cooper's not getting in Charlie Creswell's way. You know, that's the manager's decision to pick who the better player is between the two. And he's not picking that based on tenure. He's picking that based on ability. And it's the same with Shacks. He's not getting in Charlie Crew's way, because if Leeds think Charlie Crew is good enough to start, he will bypass Shacks. That's simple.
Yeah, I agree. Just while you mentioned there about players going from the first 11 onto the bench, one of them potentially could be Guev, and to ask for your thoughts on that. I was surprised on that. I didn't really give it much thought because I was on holiday. I mentioned it briefly yesterday. Have you seen anything else since it was originally mooted? Because I know you do the news, and I've not been on tune with any of it while I've been away. What are your thoughts on that? Surprised you? I was.
I am. Yeah, Bild in Germany say there's been 6 bids turned down by Leeds for Guev already.
6?
6, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they've also said that Dortmund have a keen eye on him, that Leeds would consider selling him between 10 to 14 million, and the numbers vary pretty wildly there. I look at Guev differently to most people because I again, how I watch football, I suppose. But I think he's an important part to what Leeds did in the second half of the season last year. He's not your expansive passer. Don't expect him to be. If you expect him to be, the issue is with you and not with the player. You know, he's not a box-to-box midfielder, so if you expect him to be, the issue is with you, not the player. If you expect him to be a goal-scoring midfielder, he's not. That issue, blah, blah, blah. What he does well is he blocks passing lanes. He's good in the shape. He's good at organising that midfield thing. It's like that web that you get. If you ever, for those who do play FIFA Ultimate Team and you see that dynamic between the players, he's that connecting tissue. He's that guy in the middle of the park that when the team have to go one direction, he brings them that way. When they have to go the direction, he brings them that way. He's the anchor point. He breaks up the play, blocks past the lane. So when you see players pass the ball around the centre rather than going through, it's because he's usually blocked off one of the lanes they're looking for. And he's a tidy 5-yard passer. That's his gig. That's the gig. That's all he's been asked to do. And that's, unfortunately, the problem with that is he doesn't then have an expansive midfielder beside him to pick up that ball and run with it. He's got Glenn Kamara, who arguably is a very defensive-minded midfielder as well. Yeah. So, but different attributes. But for me, if I wanted an out-and-out CDM, I'd take Guev. as my CDM, and I can understand why clubs are looking at him because there's just not an awful lot of them around.
No, it's and look, case in point for those that are listen. I've been very critical towards the back end, but I think we were all critical, of all the players because of the way it finished. But there's a reason why Dortmund, who've just been in a Champions League final, by the way, and in the first half were better than Madrid, and if they had some finishers, they could have won it. There's a reason why they're then coming for a championship midfielder in effect, because he is good and he's great at what he does. I think Emre Can must be coming towards the end of the time.
Madrid ran straight through the middle of the park in the second half. And that's what that's the point. He's a stopper for lack of a better term. You just plug him in there and then they just stop going. That we'd have to go that way now. Now it's somebody else's problem, and you narrow the pitch and all those kind of things. For me, I like him an awful lot. I would like Leeds to keep him. There's some of the talk is that he might be keen himself on going back over to that part of the world, but you don't know the full story. But he's not a player I'd be in a rush to get rid of. He's a player I would very much like to keep involved at Leeds, and then hopefully get a more expansive midfielder, whether that's Archie or somebody else beside him. Yeah.
So what do you do with Ampadu then?
This is the problem. Yeah, it depends on who's the better. What Farke wants. If Farke wants Ampadu has a better range of passing than Guev. There's no doubt about that. I think Guev is possibly a better tackler and reader of tacklers than Ampadu is, but that doesn't mean Ampadu is poor. He's still very good. It's the Kamara one is the one for me. It's the scratcher. You could put Guev and Ampadu together and do really, really well, and you could get Ampadu going further forward and probably more likely to get his head on the end of something or have a cracker on the edge of the box than Kamara is. But then you might see a different Glenn Kamara after a full preseason this year, which you didn't have last year. So
could be.
It's tough. But you need competition for places and you need depth if you're going to win the league.
It's a great bit of business, though. Let's say the club were managed to get 15 million for him. They only paid 5 million for him in the summer. Yeah. You're flipping that. You're doubling it, So it's a great bit of business. And look,
and half a season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he didn't start it, did he? And unfortunately, this is how football is now, and we're seeing it all the time, man. And all about money and them trying to change rules and all this sort of stuff. And we all have to be accountants now. But I think all of us can see, well, that's a win-win, isn't it? If you do accept a bid for Guev. So,
and if it goes before the end of June from a PSR perspective, it's great business. You've added 10 million to your kitty,
Yeah, exactly. Well, the transfer window opens on Friday, right? Same day as
14th,
So we'll know more then. Yeah, for sure. It's going to be mad.
If we make a move for a player before the end of the month, then we're not worrying about PSR.
Yeah. Be interesting, won't it? It'd be interesting to see how it goes. Let's. I'm gonna ask you then on Cooper. Does he sign the deal or not?
Cooper said at the awards at the end of the season that he'd like to stay. So I think unless he's got a better offer, and he will be told, he has to be told, you're not going to play a lot of football.
Yeah. And I think he's wise enough now to know that he's not going to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Cooper's done behind the scenes at Leeds this season. I think he's been, and you look at Georgie talking about him as an influence. You talk about Somerville talking about him as an influence.
Even Ampadu did, and he's the captain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've all talked big about him. I'd like to see a new captain though next season if he does take the year extension, because it's only an extension. Pass that armband on to somebody else. You can still be the influence, but let Ethan Ampadu become the club captain if that's the plan. If that was the plan at the end of the season, or Stroke or wherever it's going to be, make that decision and let that happen. But yeah, I think he probably does take it. And again, this is the same with Bamford stuff. I don't know why it gets personal. It doesn't need to get personal.
No.
If you don't want Liam Cooper at Leeds for a footballing perspective, or that's absolutely fine. There's no reason. There's no argument there. But he's not getting anyone's way. He's not stopping growth of any other players. None of that's real. So that's a manager's decision to make if he's good enough or not to play him. And that's all that will be. Outside of that, it should just be based on the fact of, is he a good enough footballer for the squad? Does he add value somewhere? Arguably, he adds value, but he adds value off the park.
Yeah. Great point. And Lodi, I'll categorically tell you now, and I'll put my house on it, right, even though I don't own my house. But even if we don't sign Rodon, Cooper's not starting next season.
He signed Rodon last summer, didn't he? And if he was going to use Cooper last year, then he wouldn't have signed Rodon. So that, not trying to be disrespectful, Lodi, but that comment doesn't work when you flip it. He brought Rodon in when he had Cooper. So if he thought Cooper was good, he wouldn't have brought Rodon in.
Exactly.
And Leeds arguably are still going to need to bring in two more centre backs anyway.
And also, you would argue that he wouldn't have dropped Ampadu from midfield to play centre back. He'd have played
if you thought
Cooper.
Cooper was good enough, and it was left
You know what I
centre
mean?
back as well, which is where Cooper plays.
Exactly. So you got nothing to worry about in that respect. He's there as an option off the bench. That is
What's the term? He's a warm body.
Yes, exactly. A warm body.
And sometimes you need a couple of them around the place.
100%. 100%. Yeah, Angus won it. Yeah, we don't need warm bodies, he said. We just need... That was his point. And then our strikers got injured and we were like, yeah, we needed
a couple of warm bodies.
Yeah, we definitely did. It's not like that old regime to put their foot on it, is it, really?
No.
Right, let's talk about Charlie Creswell then, mate. I spoke about it earlier on. I was quite surprised at the fee that's been bandied about, 3 million. That does surprise me. Creswell, what? Look, I had high hopes for him. I was like, he will marshal the centre-back alongside Strouk for the next decade. That's what I thought, and it just hasn't proved to be the case. So, you're surprised that we're willing to sell him as well? There'll be a big sell-on clause in there, but I'm thinking, Joe, you loan him, increase his value, and then look at it that way.
I don't know what's going on.
But
why are we selling him? Why are we in a rush to sell him when there's no need to sell him? If we're okay financially, and I mean, 3 million's not bringing in a huge amount from a PSR perspective. So, especially if you're going to sell Cree at some point, 3 million's going to be chump change in that fee. So why do it? And I think that's, Mikey's right there. I think it's one of those ones that you might regret. And I keep going back to Liam Kitching at Coventry. Kitchen's got another good season next year. Could be one of the centre backs everyone's talking about. We let him go. Do you want to keep doing that with players?
Look at Leif Davis. We let him go for $1 million. What's he worth now?
Million. Yeah, because of a manager that didn't. And this is the point. Because of a manager that didn't rate him, and that manager was Marsh. Bielsa rated him. Marsh didn't. But you look at it now, and you've got Lewis Bate being released after having a really, really good season at MK Dons. Yeah. And Creswell, two players that Bielsa liked. And Farke doesn't like, clearly. Yeah. And they could both be turfed out of the club. So, and I've said this before, you don't need to outlast your contract. You just need to outlast the manager.
Yeah.
And that happens. So Cressy, I mean, if Leeds start badly next year, and we've said this before, Daniel Farke does not get the good faith and leeway he got last season. If Leeds start the season badly, people will be looking for his head, and there will be a hard argument to go against it. And someone like Charlie Creswell could just sit back, wait till the next manager comes in and start from scratch. That's assuming it's just a manager. So if there's other stuff that's gone on, that could be more tricky. But for me, I just don't get the need to sell a player who's under 24 years of age, has 4 years remaining on a contract. Clubs want, so loan him out to them, get a loan fee, loan him out, and if it's for the cynical reasons of jacking his price up in a couple of years' time for business purposes, fine. Yeah. But if he ends up being a really, really good centre back, which I think he will be a good centre back, you can always bring him back, and you've got a player there that can play for you. You know, and you haven't had to wait around for it. You get somebody else in the short term.
100%. I mean, look, from what I've seen, I don't think he's that great with the ball at his feet, but that doesn't stop you from still being able to progress into the game, because you just have to look at players like, say, I don't know, James Tarkowski, for example, who's just a good, solid defender, very rarely puts a foot wrong. These sort of defenders, listen, maybe I'm doing Charlie a disservice, but I've not seen enough of him with the ball at his feet to say that he can do that to the level that probably Farke needs, and maybe that's why he wasn't getting played. Then we have the issues with his dad mentioning, my son's not getting played, he needs to play. Farke then had to deal with questions in the media, and he also did call out Charlie on one occasion and said, he might think he needs to play, but we've got players ahead of him. So I think maybe there was an attitude issue, or maybe he just questioned Farke, and we can tell Farke does not like his authority being questioned, rightly or wrongly.
No, it doesn't end well.
It doesn't end well for any years, not just at Leeds, but at other clubs it hasn't ended well either. So, yeah, I mean, someone asked there, what do you put it down to? It was James. He said, "What's the deal with Creswell here? Is that he's good, but I've not seen much of him, and Farke didn't play him. Is it attitude? What do you think it is, Joe?"
I think the word attitude is a dangerous word
Yeah,
to use because
same.
it insinuates an attitude problem. That might not be the case. It could be a very simple case, and he's of that age now. He's 23 now. Creswell, nearly 24.
Yeah.
He's of that age where he's going to start looking at this going, I should be playing. And I should be playing. So he's going to look at mistakes that the team have made defensively and going, well, that wouldn't happen if I was in the team, or I wouldn't have done that thing. And again, go back to his Millwall time. Didn't start great, although he scored goals. But by the second half of that season, he was one of their best players, and was a big reason in the fact that they were pushing towards the playoffs. So he's done it in the championship. He's done a playoff around about the playoffs area as a player. I don't think it's necessarily attitude. I think Charlie believes in himself, and I think he reckons he should be ahead of certain players. I think he's looking at going, I'm sorry, boss, but if you're playing a centre midfielder or centre back, I think I'm better at that position.
Yeah.
I should be playing. And he might have just backed himself. You've seen the documentaries with Spurs on Amazon. And when the player goes into the manager's office, it doesn't always end well. You know, Danny Rose, when he went in to speak to Jose Mourinho, it didn't end well for him. And unfortunately, his career went off the rails after that a little bit as well. So Creswell might just walked into Farke and said, I should be playing. I want to play. And he said, you're not getting in. Work on it. Get better in training.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other one is what's coming in behind him as well. There's some good centre backs coming up behind him as well. His brother is also having a very, very good season. The under 18s, I think this year's player of the year. He's 16, so Alfie's tearing up behind him, and he's a big lad. If you follow Charlie or Alfie on Instagram, you'll see the two of them. They're away in Spain or somewhere at the moment on holidays. But the two of them are standing beside each other. Alfie is as big as Charlie, and he's 16. So there's other players coming up behind, and they might just look at Charlie and go, probably not ready for us or what we want. We push him on and bring the next guy through.
Yeah. 21 as well, Charlie.
21, sorry, it's still the same point. That actually 100%. Makes the point even stronger. You've got time. You've got time.
I think as well, though, then when I hear about the brother as well, you then think, oh, shit, if it does turn sour for Charlie, brother will be out at the door as well.
For me, and people say football is not romantic, but Leeds fans are very romantic. And you talk about things like Harry and Archie playing in the team together. That's romantic, right? That's football romance for me. But you could also have a position in a couple of years' time where you've got a centre back pairing of Alfie and Charlie Creswell in a midfield of and a striker of Harry and Archie Gray playing there. And there's like just lads that have come through Leeds. There's some good lads there. Whether they make it or not is another story. But the romance story at least is there for like, well, 100%. You stick it out, you know. But I rate Charlie. I watched him. I did it. I mean, I have to do loan watch for the channel every season, and so every week I'm looking at the scores and looking at the comments about them, see how they've done. And Charlie did very well at Millwall. If you look at the entire season, he did a very good loan, and for me, I would have expected him. I think in our predictions for the season, I had him as young player of the year, and I think I had him as breakout star of the year. I thought he was going to play in the starting 11, and I mean, even when he played against Birmingham in that game, he wasn't bad in that game. He had a pretty good game considering the state of that team. It was not a good side, and he was fine.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like say, I'd be gutted if we sold him. I would be gutted if we sold him, and I think we should. If he's not in his plans whatsoever, we need to definitely then loan him out and protect that value, increase that value even, and then maybe look to, because like you said, players come and go, managers come and go, but managers come and go more often than players come and go, if that makes sense. So who's, like you mentioned about outlasting, this is one as well. Like I don't know if you've watched enough of him. I certainly haven't, but Monteiro, is he still only 19? Is that
he's 19? Okay. He's in the under-21s. He's doing fine. I wouldn't be rushing him. He's doing absolutely fine doing 21s. You won't see him in the first team squad for a bit, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
But he's got lots and lots of time. There should be no rush, especially with young defenders. It's a very important position. If they make a mistake at a young age, it's usually a goal. You don't want to rush that through and put him in a position where he's in a spotlight when he's not ready for it just yet. So he's doing fine doing 21s. They had a decent season by all accounts.
100%. While I remember,
ask you a question though, Joe.
Go on, mate.
Do you think some of the reaction to Cooper being offered a contract, but Charlie Creswell possibly being sold, is like, well, hang on a second, we're keeping on to this guy at the end of his career, but we're letting this guy who we reckon should be pushing into the team go? What's going on there?
What do you mean, from the club's perspective, or
no, from the fans' perspective? From a fan perspective, going, well, we're offering Cooper a new deal, but we're letting Charlie go.
Yeah. What do you mean? Have you seen like a mad reaction to it, or?
No, I'm just saying, do you reckon some of the reaction is because of something like that?
No, I don't know. I don't. To be honest, I've not seen enough like annoyance at the Charlie stuff. If I'm being totally honest, I think
This is tomorrow.
yeah, true. I think a lot of it's been just gets. I think people are just accepting of the facts now because they know Farke's not keen on him and have to accept that. And those that hate Farke just use it then as a bigger stick to beat him with. But look, it's all news at the minute. We don't know, do we? If that actually happens, and he goes to Toulouse for 3 million, I think we'll all be a little bit annoyed, frustrated, and want to know why. I think because he's going to have to answer questions on that for sure, and I don't think Charlie will be quiet when he moves on. If he moves on, I think we'll hear stuff.
But he might be because of his brother a little bit, but his dad needs to not be public about it because his other son is still there, but then he might want to move his other son out of the club.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it?
It depends if that ends. I don't use it as a stick to be Farke with. Like, managers have players they like and players they don't like, and it's never the same with two managers. Like, it's, that's just the way it is. Unfortunately, when a manager comes in, it's his squad and his image, and if Charlie doesn't fit that, he'll move him on. And I won't then turn around and go, well, Creswell's having a great season and he's gone because of you. It'll be, well, it is what it is. But I would expect him to go off and have a very good season. But I just don't get it. I just think if you loan him out next season, he comes back with 3 years left on his deal. I mean, his contract isn't even. You're still at peak money there. You're not. It's not dipping into the second last year, 18 months of a contract. It's still prime money there. So why do it? And if Toulouse want him, go, great. Take him for the year. We'll stick an option in it. We'll have a look at ourselves. And we'll come back to it at the end of the year. If we're both happy with the move and we both think the money's right then, yeah, we'll do it. But why rush? What's the rush? Because it was the same at Christmas as was he being sold to Sheffield Wednesday. And you're like, why? Why sell him?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I do, especially with so long. He only signed a deal in the summer, right? He only signed a deal just.
What a difference in 2 summers that players had.
Yeah.
Give him the number 5 shirt. Give him a new 5-year deal. Mega money. Good lad. Off you go. Stuck on the bench for the entire season.
It's mad. It's how quick it can change in football. Just while I remember as well, folks, I have done a Euro 2024 Fantasy League. I've just put the link here. It's an auto join link. All you need to do is click it. You'll come through to the league. I've got my team ready. I know Andrea's in there, Lockie and others as well off Twitter. So get involved, please, if you haven't already. Right, a few just quick questions to finish with, Joe. Danny from Not Another Leeds Pod asked, how many incomings do we see this summer?
I think 5 are probably needed.
There is a lot needed, When you actually look at the squad and the makeup, you go, oh, God, we're really like...
Assume they keep Firpo, even though he's in the final year of his contract. Assume they gamble on that. I think it was Paul or Kev during the week Leeds Therapy, or Not Another Leeds podcast, said, gamble on it. It's a gamble. You just give it the season, get you up, and then you can assess it. So maybe he wants to stay when you're in the Premier League, then maybe you do that. But assuming he stays, you need one right back. If Creswell goes, you're going to need another centre back, and that's not Joe Rodon, because I still think you need Joe Rodon as part of the team. So that's 2 centre backs you need to bring in. That's 3 players now. Arguably, you need an 8 that can go box to box and score a couple of goals. That's 4. I think we need number 10. That's 5. You're probably looking at 6 or 7. Then you probably need a winger as well, but then you could bring a couple in on loan. Yeah. I think 5 permanent ones, and then I think probably 1 or 2 on loan, then just to flesh out the rest. But
do you think
I'd love
attack the free agent market.
Has there been a better year for free agents? Some fantastic names floating around, Yeah. And linked with a couple of them as well. Probably Dicardiba would be nice at this level as well. But I don't think we get him, but I think he'd be a smashing one at this level. But there's a bit of work needed. Yeah,
I agree on the Decordova-Reid thing, but I think this might be some Premier League interest, so I think he'll go there.
Everton were, but their money situation's not been.
Mate, apparently they're negotiating a deal for Armando Broja for 30 million, so I don't know. That.
And then yesterday it was announced on Sky that they have to sell a player before the 30th because of PSRs, or else they'll breach it.
Mad, it's mad, isn't it? What do you make to Poveda, mate? Poveda's been offered a few deals. Chef Wednesday, Swansea, QPR, couple more good moves for him.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a West Brom pop up there at some point. Carlos would know him quite well from having him in 21s. Yeah, I still look. My opinion on Poveda. I think there's a talented footballer in there. If he just get a good run of games and get his head sorted out, he'd be fine. I'd like to see him at West Brom. I think he'd suit Carlos Corberán's style of football lovely.
Played for him before as well, and he would have done, I think, under
he done 21s, 23s. 23s time,
yeah.
But he had a good season at Sheffield Wednesday. For what he was available for, he had 2 injuries that kept him out for these little blocks. But very, very good and available. But then he looked decent for Leeds as well. And Farke clearly liked him. Like Farke was his option off the bench. You bring him on in games. But Poveda wanted to start games, and obviously Farke said he wasn't at that level.
Ghost and Ghost, I don't know if you're a troll or you're an opposing fan. We have money, bro. We are fine. Don't you worry about that. We've just got the biggest sponsorship deal the EFL will have ever seen. We don't know the numbers yet, but something will happen on Company's House at one point.
We'll sell 2.
We'll be able to see. We'll sell 2. That'll bring in big money.
Possibly, yeah.
Where do you think Somerville goes?
I think he goes.
Where do you think?
Where? I think Chelsea.
Chelsea, yeah.
I could see him going to Chelsea, yeah. I think, I'm not sure if Liverpool. I like the fact that Chelsea are interested in their players because they've bankrolled Brighton for 2 years. They can bankroll us for a little bit. Because they're looking at Meslier apparently as well. They still have an interest in Meslier and they still have an interest in Somerville. So great. That'll bring in some money and then we crack on.
Yeah.
We're
going to be all right, aren't we? We know Nonto's going to leave.
Worry.
Obviously, there's going to be the Gray thing as well. All depends on the money, doesn't it? None of us want to see Gray leave, but it all depends on the money.
I think Parag's comment about that was more in relation to every player rather than just Gray. I think he was just
agreed.
That was the answer no matter what player they were going to ask of. They were like, well, look, we have to look at some stuff and we'll have to wait and see, and like nobody's safe, whatever. They're going to set up for every. Because they can't say, well, Archie's not for sale, and then go, but we're selling Gray, because that makes that player go, what the fuck are you selling me for? Like, why is he okay and I'm not okay?
Yeah.
So you don't do that. But I'd say I would be surprised. I might, maybe Meslier goes as well. I wouldn't say no to Alfie Gilchrist. I think it's a tidy signing.
Same.
And that that's a clever move with it as well.
100%. Yeah. Of course. But when you're thinking about like your PSR and stuff, it's done over like 3 years and all that sort of stuff. So all that can be tied into it. That's why. It's as much as it is because they've got shares as well. It's a loophole. It's a loophole in effect by the club to say, If
you read Football Insider, then you'll think Leeds have no money and are walking into points deduction. When the reality is, there's no points deduction at all. And I don't know where they're getting this from because everyone else has said it. There's no risk of a BSR breach, none. If you listen to Parag Marate's comments, and I like to pick out little things that he says between the lines,
Yeah.
He made one very interesting comment, and that was towards the very end when he did his little speech at the end of the interviews, which I really liked, by the way. That was like his address to the nation kind of thing of this is the state of play right now. And one of the last lines he used in it where Leeds will be a force to be reckoned with in the championship next season. Like, you do not say that unless you know things are good behind the scenes.
Yeah. And I think he said as well, we're grateful for PSR. We want to be right on the line of it. And that it's almost like it's a challenge to them. Do you know what I mean? I think with regards to that sponsorship, it's been as a used of a cash injection because that then comes off your PSR basically, just whereas shares don't. So
10 million from a single sponsor a year is a lot of money from a PSR perspective. That's a huge amount. Like the SBO top was 6 to 8 million. This is 10. That's a lot for a championship club. And yes, we've got like the threshold has changed on the parachute payments a little bit as well, but like we will sell players, core assets, but we will offload a couple of other players as well.
100%.
What was your thoughts on the under-21 players that were released, Joe? Any surprises there?
From
Charlie
Leeds,
Allen.
Charlie Allen was the big one, Charlie Allen. Obviously was well thought of for a long period, but
Back to York.
Sometimes players don't make the grade, do they? I watch a lot of football content and also a lot of ex-pros talking, and sometimes they'll talk about certain players that were in their youth setups that were like better than all of them, and then they just never make the grade. Do you know what I mean? So it happens, doesn't it? Whatever reason that is, I'm not too sure, but it was well thought of.
He was. Harvey Sutcliffe was another one that I looked at and went, that's surprising. I think he came back into the team. He'd been out for quite a while with an injury and came back into and had a very good game when his first came back and was decent at the back. And then you had Danny van de Heuvel as well, who's been doing 21 keeper for the last 2 or 3 years fighting with Klaassen. So, and he's gone. And Klaassen's into the last year of his contract, so there's a decision to be made about him as well.
Do you know, just on the goalkeepers as well, I think you probably would have heard the Not Another Leeds pod. No, not Another Leeds pod. The YEP pod. this week.
Not this week yet, no.
Okay,
No.
so one of the stats was Ilian Meslier was 22nd.
Yeah.
22nd in the league for shot stopping.
That's just pure shots. Yeah.
That's bad. That's really bad.
It's not great. Yeah, it's not great.
So,
There's more to it than that, but
yeah,
as a standout statistic, it's a
yeah,
bad stat.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think they worked out who played like similar games, but he was still, because obviously, like Lockie said to me the other day when I was chatting to him about it, he said someone could come in, have one game and get 100%. So you have to look at it on games. But when they did that, he was still like 16th.
Yeah.
And that's still not good enough because number 1 was Hermansen. I think 4th was Hledaki. So you're like, yeah, we're way off that. We're way off.
Do you think they'll do it though? Do you think Leeds will change the goalkeeper? Because Farke seems to be quite happy with him. Like taking fan sentiment, our feelings, everything that out of the equation completely. Do you think Farke, when he sits and looks at the squad this year and having a full year behind us, seeing who's stood up and who's made mistakes and what's gone well and wrong, that he looks at the goalkeeping situation and goes, "I change you"? I don't
think. If we'd have gone Premier League, there's a conversation in the Championship. I don't think he does, just because I don't think, because as we both know, there is a lot of areas that need more work than the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So, and Meslier is good at building up. I won't say, I think he's good with his feet. I know some people will disagree, but he's good for me in that area.
It's a couple out of play, but when his passing range is supposed to be 25-yard diags, a couple of them are going to go out of play.
Yeah, 100%. So and look, Farke's on record as saying he's the best goalkeeper in the league. He said that after the Norwich game. So, and of course there'll be a bit of boost in his confidence and all that sort of stuff, whether or not he truly believes that. But I just think he'll look at that and say, look, we don't need to replace that. And if I'm honest, folks, I don't think we'll get a number 9 either, Joe, because they'll look at the 3 options there. Hopefully Matteo comes on and they go...
You play Matteo.
Yeah, you've got to play Matteo. They're the 3. And then
you've got to put players around him then as well that are going to give him supply. And they don't. And I argue if not done something will go, they won't have that. So they got to figure it out.
We need a progressive 8.
Yeah,
that's what we need from midfield to play alongside Ampadu or Guev or and have Kamara to come on late in games when we need to protect it or whatever. Just keep recycling possession or whatnot. We need a 10, maybe even a couple of 10s if he's going to play with 10s instead of like out and out wingers. I think he prefers to play with, you know what I mean? I think he just did that because we had Somerville and Nonto. They go, so you replace them either with out and out wingers or you have 10s. James is fine. The strikers he'll say is fine. So it'll be centre back, full back, progressive 8, and a couple of 10s, 4 or 5. I think
5. Yeah.
I don't think we'll get a 9. If we'd have gone up, we would have. But in the Championship, I don't think we will. What do you think? Is that wild?
No, I don't think so. I think it's probably not a priority position for him. I think it should be, but it probably isn't for him because he knows, look, Paddy's still there next year. Although there's sniffings of Fulham, but I don't believe any of that. But he has a summer to work with Pirro, and I've got to get this. Like I keep saying this, and this has to change next year. I can't have any managers saying things like, "Well, he just doesn't press as well as Paddy." Well, then get him to press better.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like he's a professional footballer. He has all the time in the world during the day. Get better at this. That's your job. So get Pirro better at that and get more of the Norwich game. But right now, that Norwich game is an outlier, so it's not the rule. It's not what we can expect from Pirro. So Joseph, for me, it's either next year you start him or you loan him. He can't be on the bench again next year. No, it's not going to help him. It's not going to help him benefit. But if you start the season with a young up and coming striker like Joseph next season as the 9, you've got to make sure the 10 and the boat wingers are strong enough to complement him because he will have the odd game where he's not as effective. Yeah. But I'm okay with that to go with him.
Yeah. No, I agree. Look, I'd love Callum O'Hare, but I think he goes maybe Premier League. I'm not too sure.
Is he free? Is he free?
He's out of contract. No, he's out of contract now, I think. Yeah, I think he's free now.
But if you want 3 10s, you'd nick him and Smodix, and then you put Georgie in that mix, and there's your 3.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be really nice, isn't it? Move Rutter. I'd move Rutter off the right or left and put Schmorix right in the centre.
Right in the centre. Completely
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Get it done, Daniel. Get it done.
It will be interesting. Well, Jer, great chat. Thanks for coming on as always.
Mate.
I think we'll leave you there. Is there anything people need to be made aware of on Leeds United The View?
Podcast from the week before the list was released with the massive edit of the retained list conversation being taken out of it. That's available on the channel. You can check that out if you want to. And then I'm back tomorrow morning to news anyway. So there's a couple of bits and pieces poking our head up over the weekend.
Yeah, there is, isn't there? There's a few bits of news. I'll see which way the wind blows tomorrow, folks. I think I'm on with Connor actually at 10 on his channel, so that's still going ahead. And then it'll be all Euros, man. We're getting ready for the Euros, so I did my calendar earlier on for that. Oh my God, for the next 2 weeks, the Euros. I don't think I might as well put a little sleeping bag in here, bro, and just sleep between games like that.
This is working season for you now, mate.
Yeah,
14 get to work, pal.
That's it. Exactly, that's what I mean. So I did send it to my girlfriend earlier and she went, right, Joe, we need to have a chat. I went, no, I've got to do it, man. I've got to do it.
This is the gig.
Yeah, this is the gig, man. This is the gig. Yeah, I will be streaming Uruguay and Canada as well during the evening. Well, it's early mornings, I think, some of it, but we'll be doing hate-alongs.
I'm shocked at that.
Hate-alongs, man. Hate-alongs for Jesse and obviously love-alongs for our man Bielsa. So I think Uruguay might win it, you know?
I think they might.
I think they might win it. Yeah.
Great watching the football again. God, I miss that football. It's like it's a dream. Like it never happened.
I know. He's got a tune out of Darwin Núñez as well. You know, a bit like he did with Bamford. This is what he does, man. This is what he does. So it's going to be a joy. Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it there. I'm talking too much. Make sure you check out Leeds United The View. Quick little update from my end. We are 5 subscribers away now from 30k. Now, I did get the 30k giveaway ready to draw because I thought I might have got them. I haven't. So if you're not subscribed, do it. I've still got the free Willing On Tour shirts to give away, home, away, and third kit. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please do. And like I say, we're getting so close to them being drawn. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks always for watching. I'll see you in a bit. Adios, people. Bye-bye.
Bye.